There we go. Okay, here we go.
We are now 3 days out from the election. There's a mad scramble, of course, in Washington for people to get positions of power in the new administration. Some of them are good people, some of them are not. You are being widely discussed as potentially the next National Security Advisor or Secretary of Defense taking over.
I don't think I've ever heard of this guy.
I don't know what's going to happen. I'm fairly confident you'll play a large and meaningful role in this administration. You're never going to say any of that, but I thought that the audience might like some context for why we're having this conversation. I think you're one of the very few people with deep experience in national security who shares the president's priorities on national security, which is amazing. There aren't too many. You're, I would say, the leader of them. There's the context. What does this next administration need to do in order to...
Dude, I'm sorry. I have this tab on my other monitor, and I haven't reloaded it since I went live 3 hours ago. When I went live today, this video had 6K views. I'm still in fucking shock and disbelief. And then you reload, 225. I'm obsessed, bro. I am obsessed. Yes, it's blowing my mind. I'm sorry if I'm being annoying. If I won't shut the fuck up, I'm sorry. Like, actually, I am. I'm sorry. If I'm being annoying, I'm sorry. It's blowing my fucking mind. Okay, I'm done. Sorry, I'm being annoying. Probably. I'm sorry.
Remain true to the president-elect's articulated positions on war and peace.
Well, thank you, Tucker, and thank you very much. First off, for your confidence in me, it means a great deal. I don't
it's
make
heartfelt.
I know, and that's why I'm deeply grateful and honored. And I clearly don't make any presumptions about any role for myself. But what I would say, and I mean this with all sincerity, is that I think the president of the United States, the president-elect, is exactly right that we stand on the possible precipice of World War III, and we need a fundamental change before we ram right into the iceberg. I mean, I think the election is over, but this remains absolutely true, is that what I call the liberal primacist alliance, basically the kind of policies of President Biden and Vice President Harris aligned with the primacists, I call them, we could call them the neoconservatives, have led us to a situation in which we're overextended, we're on the brink of war in multiple theaters, and we could lose them. I really want peace. And more importantly, President Trump ran, to his historic credit, on an agenda.
Dude, what if the neocons are right? What if the neocons are like, yeah, listen, bitch, this is the American empire. America owns the globe. If you don't like that, we're going to fucking bomb you. Deal with it. Deal with it, bitch. America. This is the American world order. And can I tell you something kind of curious? I've said this before, but it's like, I feel like a lot of Americans actually maybe could kind of get behind that, or at least they wouldn't care, if domestically America was awesome. If domestically America was, like, if we didn't have illegal immigration and a drug crisis and a housing crisis and a shit economy, and everybody inside of America was happy and thriving and having kids and affordable housing, and you could have the traditional American family, then it's like, okay, you know what? Yeah, whatever. We are the empire. Yeah, whatever. Okay, we own the planet. I think people wouldn't really bother me, but shit sucks. But shit fucking sucks here. And my camera sucks. And it was made in China. And I ordered it not thinking it would be fixated on my fucking cock all day. So, I'm going to try to fix this. There, stay. 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 Oh my... Stay.
As he said in his sort of victory speech, I don't start wars, I end them. Now, I think my view is that we have to have how you actually get to peace is a difficult question. And I had the honor of being on your show a few years ago when my book came out. And I remember, I don't know if you recall, but I said I was thinking about your question to President Trump about why is it worth defending allies. And I gave that a lot of thought. And that, in a sense, my book is a response to that question. And I think you do need strength. You do. But
of course.
And you need peace through strength. But that term has become cheapened and distorted to become basically an excuse for an aggressive expansionist approach to foreign policy. But I think you do, it's real meaning. And President Trump is, in a sense, going back to the great tradition of the Republican Party, the Weinberger Doctrine, the Powell Doctrine.
Yes.
Nixon. Eisenhower, as Bob Dole used to put it, these are Democrat wars. It used to be Democrats that started wars and Republicans that ended or avoided them. Eisenhower didn't go into Vietnam in 1954. He did not intervene in Hungary in 1956. Again, nobody thought he was a weak guy. So what needs to happen right now?
Before you get into that, I just think it might be helpful to describe where we are now, because a lot of Americans, I'm in this category, were so absorbed in the election that we may have lost touch with what you opened your remarks by noting, which is we're on the brink of war in multiple theaters. Just will you tell us where we are?
Absolutely. Well, I think for the first time in about basically 150 years, we are not clearly the world's largest economy. We compete for that with China, and they are a far larger industrial power. Russia, in purchasing power parity terms, is a very large economy with enormous industrial production capacity. So North Korea advancing its nuclear missile program.
So Russia is a larger manufacturing economy than a lot of us.
Okay, I feel like North Korea has been advancing their nuclear weapons program for my entire life, and it seems like, maybe I'm just out of touch, it seems like they never actually make any progress. Is North Korea retarded? Like have they actually progressed in any single way militaristically in the last 20 years? Have they actually? They suck. It seems like they suck at anything ballistics, intercontinental ballistic missile. It seems like they just can't get their missile shit right. They just cannot figure it out. But they do have nuclear payload. They just seem like they can't figure out how to deliver it anywhere. It's they have a package. They just can't fucking deliver it anywhere. That seems to be like the case. I don't know.
It's appreciated, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I despite a lot of boasting, they're still outproducing the North Atlantic Alliance, including the United States, in artillery production, which is old technology, by like a factor of 2 or 3.
Wow.
Iran's 2 weeks from a nuclear weapon, according to Tony Blinken. And worse, these actors have come together. Now, you will hear from
What did he say? 2 weeks? Really? Did he?
A lot of boasting. They're still outproducing the North Atlantic Alliance, including the United States, in artillery production, which is old technology, by like a factor of 2 or 3. Iran's 2 weeks from a nuclear weapon, according to Tony Blinken.
Iran has been 2 weeks from nuclear weapon for 20 years, more, 30 years. In fact, dude, this is, hold up, look at this. Iran, 48 hours away. This is this 1 month ago. Iran is within 48 hours of having capacity to build nuclear weapons, says former U.S. general.
Joining us now, retired Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg, Fox Business contributor. And
yeah. 2 weeks, 2 days, 2 hours. Yeah. I'm not sure if I buy it. I don't know if I buy it. Where is that? There it is.
And worse, these actors have come together. Now, you will hear from the sort of primicists and liberals that means that we have to fight them all at the same time. No, to the contrary, it means they are collaborating together precisely to tie us down and deplete us. And that's what's happened in the war in Ukraine, where we have expended a tremendous amount of weapons. Ditto in places like attacking the Houthis and so forth. At the same time, our defense industrial base has wildly atrophied from where it was 30 years ago. And this is why the agenda for reindustrialization is so important. But that's going to take a long time.
Dude, you know what? Oh. I wonder... Yo, check this out. Okay. Google Trends. Iran, 2 weeks away. I wonder, like, if we can we track this? Can we track this? Well, there's only one. Okay, 2014. Okay, what is the phrase? Iran nuclear weapons. Weapons, maybe. Oh, yeah. So as you can see, we've been yapping about this for a long time. 2006, it was pretty bad. Oh, this is peak war on terror. What is happening in 2006? We got to invade them. We have to invade Iran. We have to invade. They're so close to nuclear weapons. We have to invade them in 2006. And then it kind of died down. What happened? This is January 2020. What the fuck? Guys, jog my memory. What happened in January of 2020? Why is that the biggest thing? This is super early COVID. Like, super early COVID. What the fuck happened? Was there a big Iranian... this is when Soleimani was assassinated? Is that when he died? I don't know. Stay safe. I started losing weight because you talking shit to chat. I'm down to 34 pounds. You probably need to weigh more than 34 pounds. Well, how tall are you? If you're like 2 feet tall, that's probably a good weight. Oh, you said you lost. Oh, my bad. I misread. My bad, bro. Okay, no, grats. That's huge. That's good. That's good. Sorry, dude. I just thought you were like a gnome. I misread. I figured you were a gnome or a toddler or something. Okay, no, that's good. That's really good. Congratulations. Good for you. Keep it up. Keep it up, bro. Seriously, you should feel proud about that. You put your mind to it. You did it. Good for you. That's some good work.
As Senator Vance has pointed out. Meantime, China.
Wait, so can I say it's not, I mean, I thought one of the justifications, the main justification for this wildly inflated Ukraine funding was that it was going to help reestablish America's
Didn't happen.
Industrial base.
And in fact, one of the most kind of oft-used arguments by a lot of the advocates for the war in Ukraine was that we would sort of degrade the Russian military for a song and restore our defense industrial base.
This is one of the huge Democrat copes, is that, well, we're not actually giving Ukraine, yeah, I know we've given them $700 million or whatever the number is, pick a number, but it's not like we're giving them cash or equipment that we need. We're giving them old equipment, and we're going to need to replace it with new stuff, and it's going to revitalize our manufacturing, and we're going to build this stuff domestically. It's going to be good for our economy long run. Like you're saying, it seems to actually have not really been the case. That was pretty much copium.
At the same time, actually, more or less, the reverse has happened. The Russian military is larger, and this is, General Kavoli, the SACEUR, has admitted this. The Russian military is larger. It's battle hardened. I mean, our military has not fought a peer adversary, well, I mean, really since World War II, but certainly since Vietnam and Korea. The Russians have gone toe-to-toe with the Ukrainians, who are capable, and they have a revved-up defense industry at the same time. So in a sense, we're worse. Meantime, the Europeans have basically been asleep at the switch, not going through with their defense buildup, with a few noble exceptions like Poland. So, and then you look at China, which is by far the most formidable challenger, 10 times the GDP of Russia. This administration, Tony Blinken, has said Xi Jinping has given the instructions to their military to be ready for a war over Taiwan by 2027. Frank Kendall, the Secretary of the Air Force in the Biden administration, said the other day that he thinks the Chinese military will say they're ready. We have to be ready for this. My view is we desperately want peace. The Chinese are going to look at us both in terms of our strength, but also in terms of our political commitments. And this is where I think President Trump has been exactly right, which is being willing to talk to President Xi Jinping, not insulting President Xi Jinping and President Putin and others unnecessarily, not supporting things like Taiwan independence, and at the same time being prepared to be strong. And this is where I think if we appoint or if people are put into positions of power who...
Well, okay, if you have a policy such that you say, okay, China, if you try to invade Taiwan, we are going to help them. We will intervene. That is, in a roundabout way, not even in a direct way, you are supporting Taiwan independence. America has done that, by the way, in the mid-90s. China actually was about to launch a ground invasion of Taiwan, and right as that was happening, Bill Clinton sent a bunch of naval groups in between the fucking water strait between Taiwan and China. So America has actually directly been involved, and we actually stopped it, and then China kind of stepped down. And so I guess the question is, I don't know, what do you think? If China were to actually go at Taiwan, do you think we would stop them? Would America get directly involved and try to stop them from invading Taiwan under the Trump presidency? If we have Trump in the White House and China invades Taiwan, what do we do? What do we do? Are we directly going to get involved against China, World War III scenario, in order to protect the autonomy of Taiwan? Dude, I don't know. I don't know. Hi, Amish electrician. I don't know. That's actually really hard to say. I think we probably would do something. I think we probably would, but I think we would, like, the extent to which we got involved. It would be like, only defending the Taiwanese landmass versus like directly attacking mainland China, right?
Think that
Like I think something like saying that we are going to establish a no-fly zone or a no-sail zone around Taiwan, and we're going to use our Navy and Air Force to do that. And then if you enter, yeah, we're going to fucking blast your ass out. Versus we are attacking mainland China. That's like a different thing, right? I think we could do the first.
we can walk and chew gum and do everything and start wars in 3 different theaters at the same time, not only will that be bad like it was in the Iraq War, and often the same people, it will be far more catastrophic. Tucker, I don't think this is an exaggeration. I think we stand on the precipice of losing a major power war for the first time in our history. So people need to know what time it is, and that really requires focusing on China with the purpose of peace, like we did in the Cold War, which was to say, we're going to be strong. We're not going to go over the line like Eisenhower did in 1950. He's not going to go into Hungary. We're not going to go to Czechoslovakia in 1968. But don't come across our line because you see it's not going to succeed for you. So I think we really stand at a crossroads. And I think President Trump has a mandate for peace. So I just, as an American, whatever happens to me, I so hope that we don't end up with the same failed recipe of starting wars all over the place or getting enmeshed in conflicts when we can't afford to do so, and they're not in the interest of the American people.
From a non-expert position, which is my position, just as someone who's watching, kind of, there does seem to be broad recognition that whatever our objectives in Ukraine were, we didn't achieve them and we can't. Zelensky immediately comes out upon Trump's election and says, actually, I'm for peace. That does maybe seem like it's winding down. Oh, who knows?
I hope. Yeah.
But the noises are consistent with winding down.
Yeah.
So, but at the same time, the very people who are pushing that war all of a sudden like very excited about a war with Iran.
Yeah.
It's like they just seamlessly move. It's like, oh, Ukraine, whatever. Actually, the real problem is Iran, and telling us that Iran's trying to murder President Trump, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know what's true. I don't. But how would the United States, what would happen if we went to war with Iran?
Well, I mean, I think, look, Iran's a bad regime. We don't want to have a nuclear weapon. We don't want to.
This is also my retard take, just kind of watching the last couple of months. It seems like Iran is way weaker and way less of a threat than anyone had thought 12 months ago. Like 12 months ago, it's like, dude, Iran is like a real boogeyman. We're really worried about Iran. It seems like Iran is like totally incapable of like doing anything effectively. Like they to such an extent that Israel is just kind of like acting with impunity, doing whatever they want. Of course, they have American backing, but Israel is like totally the top dog in the region, and it seems not even fucking close. It seems not even close. So I guess like the big concern with Iran would be, okay, if something with Iran pops off, America's involved, Israel's involved. Does Russia back Iran? Does Russia get involved? Does China get involved to support Iran? Like maybe Iran on its own is not that big of a deal, maybe. But do other big players get involved to help them out?
We want to support Israel. We don't want to be able to support groups attacking Israel, et cetera, et cetera. But like, haven't we learned the lesson over the last 25 years about the ill-advised nature of very significant conflicts in the Middle East that don't have clear goals and clear connection to American interests? Like, haven't we been didn't we run this experiment a couple times? And it's often the exact same people calling for war with Iran who were involved in the past. And it's like, shouldn't there be some degree of accountability? Moreover, it's like a bad idea in itself. I mean, like I was criticized in The Bulwark by Eric Edelman, who was Dick Cheney's advisor and number 3 at the Pentagon under Bush. He said my ideas were iconoclastic. And I was like, thank you. I'm delighted that you think my ideas are iconoclastic.
But how could Eric Edelman be writing with any credibility at all on foreign policy questions after being intimately involved in the Iraq War and then never apologizing? I don't know. There should be some international authority that requires contrition, like a moral UN where you don't get to say another word until you don ashes and sackcloth and apologize.
I mean, who among us isn't? I'm certainly not inerrant. I'm certainly not infallible. But like, at least show some. It's like Paul Gigot of the Wall Street Journal a year ago gave a speech to AEI, treated the Iraq War as like a mulligan. You know, it's like, I think that's like a big deal. And, you know, obviously a lot of people got to, you know, have different views, et cetera. But it's like, it's kind of show the contrition, show the penance, show the learn.
I see the question real quick. Are you Kick exclusive now? No. So, real quick, I think like maybe long term, I want to do one Twitch stream per week where I play World of Warcraft probably for a couple hours, probably once a week. Like maybe I do 5 or 6 hours of World of Warcraft gameplay per week on Twitch. But then, yeah, like 85% of all the content, and most of the content now is kind of reaction, politics, news, drama, whatever. All of that's going to be on Kick. All of the video watching, the talking about news, whatever drama, that's on Kick. But yeah, I think once a week, I think we will be on Twitch. Dude, I'm feeling pretty confident right now. I have to say, like, there were a couple days where I was like, man, fuck. Like, dude, what are we gonna do? Bro, we're live on Kick. Got 16, almost 1,700. Hey, we're 25 subs away from 1,700 on Kick. We have 2.2k viewers. The YouTube channel is going fucking viral. I'm like, hey, listen, hey, whatever happens, happens. Fuck it. Dude, honestly, at this point, like, I look at what's going on YouTube, and I'm like, hey, even if I were to get banned, permanently banned on Twitch and Kick, okay, we're streaming on YouTube. I'm feeling so good. I am so at ease. Okay, so, but yeah, that's the plan for now. The kind of breakdown that I said. What was I gonna say? Isn't Kick 90-10? Kick is 95-5. Kick is 95-5. Twitch is 70-30. Kick is 95-5. Oh, there's also another thing with Kick. Kick has a program that I'm going to apply to here pretty soon where they actually pay you per hour. Every hour that you're streaming on Kick, you get paid some amount of money, and it depends on how many viewers you have, but they actually pay you by the hour. Yeah, the Kick Creator Incentive Program, the KCIP. I haven't qualified for it yet. Oh, you know what it is? I need to, here, I'll bring this over real fast. You have to have all of these like various metrics. I need to do one more stream. So after one more day, so I'll stream on Kick tomorrow. After tomorrow's stream, I'll be able to apply to this program. And then maybe we're getting paid by the hour. I don't know. Or maybe they don't accept me. I don't know. Maybe they turn me down. But anyway, do you have to do Gamba? I don't think you have to do Gamba to be a part of that program. I don't think so. But yeah, anyway, that's kind of the plan. That's the plan for the moment, is to kind of do that split. That's the split.
And so that, I think, is, you know, the other thing, though, Tucker, is like it's the same people who are calling for attacking Iran who are also calling for escalating the war in Ukraine, or even a no-fly zone, recognizing an independent Taiwan, or getting in a war with China, or attacking North Korea. It's like if we do all those things, we know objectively as a fact that our military is not capable of fighting more than one major war at a time. So even if you did want to, getting in multiple fights with people at the same time is just like foolhardy. And I mean, but the way I think about it is the Washington blob establishment can get us
no, I think no, and probably not. No, I don't
into
think so.
wars and crises, but they can't fix the problem. So It's really important right now. And it seems to me that, you know, just listening to President Trump and his historic victory, the decisive mandate he got, his leadership, his mandate, his agenda for peace from a position of strength, use the military sparingly, but have it be strong. It's really important not to get enmeshed all over the place and either bleed ourselves out or in a catastrophic multi-front loss.
I think that's the last thing Donald Trump wants.
Certainly seems that way.
Right. I mean,
would you ever do any IRL collabs with other Kick streamers? No. And also, I would never do any online collabs with any streamers ever. I've decided with my streaming career, I'm going total streamer incel. I'm not collabing with fucking any. I'm not talking to anyone. I'm not debating anyone. I don't want to be on a podcast with anyone. I'm doing my own. I am an incel. I'm a streamer incel. I'm going my own way. I'm going my own way. I'm a MGTOW. No, I'm a GigTOW. Hold up, GigTOW, StrigTOW, SigTOW, streamer going my own way. I don't know, I don't fucking know. Anyway, yeah, that's kind of what I'm doing. What about whatever maybe whatever podcast. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe. I do like the whatever podcast, maybe. But I've had people say, "Oh, you should debate this guy. You should go on this podcast. You should do this." Just don't really want to do that. Just don't really want to do that.
And the arc of his life is so remarkable. The redemption that we just saw on Tuesday.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Without.
That's a good question. What about to promote your book? That's a good question. That is an exception. Whenever the book is done, I will go on every single relevant podcast. Yeah. I will shamelessly go on every single schizo podcast. I'll talk about it. Yeah, I will do that. We're still a little bit away, but yeah, I will. Hyperborea. That's right.
Precedent really in American history. And so if you wanted to destroy his presidency, his second presidency, what's the one foolproof way to destroy it?
No president has ever lost a great power war. Donald Trump has run to his enormous historic credit. He has been shot. He has had lawfare conducted against him. And he has had the bravery and the vision and the persistence and the commitment at great personal physical cost, but also to his reputation, his family, et cetera, to stand up for these principles that the United States desperately needs, putting Americans' interests first, peace, prosperity, et cetera, reindustrialization. Now is the time to put that into practice, whoever it is. I can't stress how important that is. And if you're thinking about a historical legacy, Joe Biden's going to leave a legacy that's terrible. I mean, for all the things, you mentioned the war in Ukraine. 2.5 years in, Julian Barnes, New York Times just reported that the intelligence community is reporting that the Ukrainians are losing, that it's not a stalemate. So after all that, after all the preaching, after all the moralism, the Ukrainians are losing the war and the Russians are making enormous progress. And we're unprepared. We're unprepared for a war with China. The Middle East is in the worst situation in years. We can't even stop the Houthis, like a third or fourth rate power. And we're not prepared. So they've left us on the precipice. They've put us on the Titanic is directing towards the iceberg. It's going to take a sharp turn. And the way I think about this, and when I worked at the Brown.
Yeah, like I'm thinking, to be fair, I don't think that we have really tried to stop the Houthis seriously. We have not made a concerted effort to do that.
Worked for President Trump in his first term when we worked on the defense strategy to try to get us to prioritize, again, in my view, with the same logic, very consistent with what President Trump, I think, was trying to lay out. That was like, we were a couple miles from the iceberg back then. Now we're like right up, we're a few thousand yards. And it's not easy to turn the Titanic. And if you turn the Titanic 90 degrees, people are going to fall out of their bunks. Chandeliers and beautiful, plates are going to get broken. But that's where we are. But that is the fault of what I call the liberal primacist alliance. That is the fault of Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and the primacist, sort of old school Republicans who, if they pursued that policy further, would lead us to catastrophe.
Then how is it that, from what I can tell, pretty much every person in the running for the big national security jobs other than you is part of that alliance? And I know them all, and I like some of them. A couple sitting U.S. senators who I think are really nice guys, but they're tools of the people you describe, like completely. There's kind of no doubt about it. How is it that there are so few people on the Republican side in national security with experience who agree with the president-elect who leads the party?
So I've thought a lot about this because I've been fighting, as you kindly gesture, in a sort of a lonely battle within the sort of blob to put us on, like, to me, what is common sense.
Exactly. Right? That's right.
And yet so few people do it. And why is that? It's so weird. And honestly, so much of your insight.
Can I tell you something? When a white man says, "That's so weird. That's so weird." No. What am I trying to... Hey, camera? Hey, camera? Hey, camera? Hey, camera? Lock. Stay. No, what I'm trying to say is, when a white guy says, "That's so weird. That's so weird," that's a dog whistle. What that means is there is some schemery. There is some schemery going on, and he knows it, and I know it, and everybody else knows it, but you can't say it. That's what that means. It means there's some schemery. It's so weird. Why did that happen? That's so weird. We all know what that means.
Citing some commentaries both on this show and your other
so
podcast
weird.
interviews and your shows, et cetera. Because I think there's a human sociological element. I mean, not to get, and one of the things that's kind of bizarre is that I think like today, people like us, we can learn a lot from the new left of the 60s and 70s. Like there's
100%.
something wrong with the establishment and the way the establishment. Now, I believe there's always an establishment. There's an establishment in Mao's China, but we need a better establishment.
Well, that's it.
You know,
That's
you're a fan of Teddy Roosevelt too. Like the idea that like the establishment just does what it used to do is like, no, the point is the establishment is supposed to serve the people, right?
Of course.
But I think there's an element, and I try to give credit because like, yeah, there's money and stuff, but there's other ways of making money. I think it's this psychic kind of like network benefit of being part of like essentially functionally an imperial capital.
Yes.
And everybody comes to, you know this, right? They come to the capital and say, you're so wise. We need your leadership. You're so moral in your vision. And it happens in Congress where people come, they probably not thought about foreign policy that much. There are all these structures set up to kind of acculturate them. And again, like, I don't want to sound too new left, but like, this is kind of what happens. And so you need, I think, a clear-eyed view of how to change and frankly a willingness to buck the system. And this to me is like, and I'm certainly far from the only person to make this point, and I think you have as well, is like President Trump ran against the system. And that is so important because it's the system, the liberal primacist alliance, in other things like trade and economics, et cetera, that need to be a fundamental change. And already he's paid the price literally and shown the bravery and commitment to go through that. And so now it's about like capitalizing. And frankly, my hope is if that happened, a lot of these people, especially in the younger generations, would follow. And forgive me for a little bit of patting myself on the back, but I think it's an apropos comment. I was out at a thing a few months ago, and this young guy came up, strong guy, whatever, and he said, "Hey, Mr. Colby, I'm going into the Marines, and I just want to say all the young Republicans love what you're saying." And I said to him, I was like, "Well, that's good because all the old
Squirrel, thank you very much. I appreciate the 10. I appreciate the 10. Thank you very much. I appreciate that, bro. Thank you very, very much. Sir, everybody 07. Everybody 07 for the 10 gifted subs. Thank you very much. Or post a we are on Kick. You can post a W. Thank you very much. Thank you, dude.
old Republicans hate it." And he's like, "Yeah, that's the point."
Boy, do they. Boy,
right?
do they.
They do that. And that's like, to me, I think of myself, I'm like the first line, not to, this is, although, there are people out there you wonder about, but like, this is not like actually getting shot, but it's like, I'm trying to think about how do we protect Americans from not getting shot?
Of course.
Right. And so I think the young people can see it, the young people who are like, who are not bought in to, who have not been kind of acculturated, worked for X senator on this committee for 10 years and then went to that think tank and blah, blah, blah. I think they if you build it, they will come, but it's like the first echelon. we take a lot of metaphorical flack, hopefully metaphorical.
I won't go on about this, but I am a little bit distressed by it, very distressed by it. But like someone like Mike Pompeo, I'll just say the name, who I don't think is going to get a job in this administration.
He's not.
I would pray that he's not. I think he's a criminal.
Dude, what's so weird, and I don't know how to really approach this yet. I haven't thought about it too much. About 5 days ago, no, it was before the election, so must have been about 10 days ago. About 10 days ago, Ben Shapiro was on a podcast, and Ben Shapiro says, "I hear from a good source on the inside that Mike Pompeo is going to be in the Trump cabinet. He's going to have a job in the Trump admin." Trump comes out yesterday afternoon and confirms to everybody, Mike Pompeo and Nikki Haley are not going to be in my administration. They will not. And so it's like, who's Ben Shapiro talking to? Who's he here? Makes you wonder. This is like totally schizo 5D interdimensional chess. Do you think Trump is disseminating fake leaks? Like, is Trump telling different people different things to see who's leaking, right? I'm going to tell this guy one thing. I'm going to tell this guy another thing. I'm going to tell this guy that thing. I'm going to tell this guy this thing, okay? And depending on what gets leaked, I know exactly where it came from because I told them all different things. Do you think there's something going on? Yeah, some Game of Thrones shit. I don't know. I don't know what to make of that situation because Ben Shapiro seemed pretty fucking confident that Pompeo is going to be on that part of that admin.
I've said that plotted to murder someone who hadn't even been charged with a crime. That's a criminal act. Should be arrested for that. That's my view. But even if you don't believe that, he's been anti-Trump for 8 years, worked against Trump, and he's a crazed neocon. And he's still being talked about and promoted. Again, I don't think he's going to get the job, but promoted to run the national security establishment in the United States. How can that even happen?
Well, look, I mean, I think it's if I were advising President Trump, I would say, especially now that the mandate has happened,
yes,
why pick anybody who's not aligned with what you're trying to do? I mean, I saw the last ad that President Trump ran. I mean, it was a stirring ad, and it won.
Purge
Who was in that ad?
The non-believers. Purge
Tulsi
them.
Gabbard, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Vivek, and Vice President-elect Vance.
Have a good night, bro.
That is the mandate, So like, my hope is that he will own that, and that's the way for peace. And there's going to be debates about various policies and how to emphasize this or that. But why go back especially in a situation where, as successful as the first term is, the situation that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are leaving President Trump in January is, I cannot stress how dangerous it is. And he's right. I mean, the way that President Trump, again, has commendably talked about the risk of nuclear war. I worked on nuclear issues a lot. My kind of starting point a lot was like working on nuclear weapons and nuclear strategy and arms control. I worked on arms control with the Russians. We should be afraid of these things. A salutary fear, not like an unmanning fear, if you will.
Right.
But like a salutary fear. The beginning of wisdom is fear, or whatever the Bible says to that effect. I should know that, but
it's true.
It's true, right? Is understanding and calibrating. And to me, one of the like touch grass kind of things about a lot of the people who are calling for like no-fly zones over Ukraine and intervening against the Russians and escalating and allowing U.S. weapons to be overtly used to attack Moscow and Russian strategic, forces sites, like. That is obviously crazy. It's like, time out. Like, that is obviously.
There are many Republicans.
Yeah. In fact, some of the that's why I think that the arguments within the Republican Party in some ways are fiercer, because my hope, Tucker, and I think this is something you've been on for a while, but it's like the Democrats are like, they're sort of inherently out of position right now. Like, where is the left? Where are the people who are like anti-war? Where are the people who say the CIA is not above reproach or the FBI is not above reproach?
The left is having a major identity crisis or
Wright Mills or whatever,
right
the
now.
power elite and all this stuff. Those people, those movements have to come back. And I think that that's something where, especially given the mandate that President Trump has won, that whatever you think of Bernie Sanders, the fact that he said like we're out of position. And others are saying they're out of position. My hope is that Democrats will go back, in a sense, to the kind of arguments that I'm making that I think you could have heard a Democrat make.
Well, I don't know. Okay, so right now internally, not internally, externally, this is publicly being broadcast on CNN, MSNBC, ABC, Hassan Abi. The debate is on the left. Why did we lose? Are we too centrist? Are we not progressive enough, or are we too progressive? A guy like Hassan Abi and a bunch of the very influential online leftists, online progressives, they say, all the Redditors, they say, we're not progressive enough. All right, the reason why we lost is because we're not distinguished enough from the Republicans. We need to progress further, okay? Other Democrats are saying, well, maybe we're actually too progressive. Maybe we focus too much on talking about things like trans bathrooms and fucking, maybe we should have closed the border down. Maybe that was a problem, actually. Maybe that's how we lose voters. Maybe we should not talk about reparations to Africans or, all these progressive talking points. And so really, who knows which way they go? 4 years from now, next election, 3.5 years from now, next election, do you think the Democrat Party is more or less progressive than where we are now? Which way does the Democrat Party go 3.5 years from now? Are they more or less? I can't imagine that they will be successful ever again if they are more progressive than they are now. I cannot fathom it. I can't fathom a mainstream American political party having success in this country being more progressive than where we have been for the last year or so. I can't even imagine. I don't think it's going to happen. But the next question is, does the Democrat Party or the Democrats in charge, do they have the introspection to realize that? Like, are they going to, within the next 3.5 years, are they going to have the introspection to say, you know what? Hey, listen, we're going to analyze our own flaws here. We're too progressive. We have gone too far. We need to reel it back in. We need to reel it back in. Okay, some of these things we're talking about, they do not have mass appeal or mass support from the American population. We got to reel it back. Are they going to have that heart-to-heart with themselves internally and make a change? That I wouldn't bet on. I would not bet on. So you know what? Maybe you're right. Maybe they do become more progressive. Maybe they do go the more progressive route. Maybe they do.
10 minutes ago,
Right.
or 30 years ago, or 40 years ago, hey, we've got to be able to talk to our opponents. We have to have a strong military, but not get into unnecessary wars. That's just common sense.
That's for sure. Do you remember when Democrats used to refer to abortion as something that should be safe, legal, and rare? Well, they've changed their view on that. It went from a right to a sacrament.
Now you have abortion maxers. I'm abortion maxing. I just had my 3rd abortion this year. In 2024, I had 3 abortions.
Now is probably a good time to address it. Your last name is Colby. That is familiar. That's a familiar name to anyone who knows the history of the Central Intelligence Agency. Your grandfather ran it, William Colby. And there are 2 interesting things. One is, I'm sure this will set off just explosions of theorizing on the internet. So what is your view of CIA? That's why your family's in Washington, because you're.
Yeah, well, actually, my
Oh, okay. So this guy's CIA too, and then Tucker's dad was a CIA propagandist. Okay, so this is just 2 glowies talking. Just a good old-fashioned glowy conversation. Okay, we'll see where it goes.
My great-grandfather was a career Army officer, so I come from a kind of a national security, background. I mean, my dad not so much, but look, my view on the intelligence community, and I worked on this stuff myself when I was kind of early in my career, although on the commission that looked at why Iraq intelligence is wrong. I didn't agree with my grandfather for everything. I didn't know him super well. I mean, I know a lot about how he approached things and how he, his record and so forth. One thing where I do really agree with him, and where his legal training and the fact that actually, as Jim Schlesinger said, he was the first liberal to become director of Central Intelligence, was that he thought, and I agree with him, that you need a CIA.
So his grandfather was an old director of the CIA. Okay.
Need a national security establishment, but it's not above reproach, and it needs to be accountable. And that's what he. The interesting thing about him, and just to stress that I don't take any credit for it, like I'm just telling, just because you asked me. But he was in World War II. He was then a field guy. He was in Europe, and then he was in Vietnam for a long time. And then he kind of ended up as director by happenstance, as these things sometimes do, during Watergate. And he had not been really involved. He wasn't one of the inside club of I see you got Dick Helm's book, The Man Who Kept the Secrets. He was the kind of ultimate insider, Washington operator kind of. My grandfather was out, unlike me, I'm more of a, DC type, policy type. But I think he came in and he said, there's a chance that, remember this, the Democrats at the time, the congressional class of 1974, very left wing, a lot of them were thinking, let's just get rid of this place. Let's get rid of the intelligence community. Right. And his view is like, that's not good for our country, but it's not good that they're spying on Americans. I got in debates on some of these on Twitter sometimes about whether the American government is funding some of the stuff, in Europe or whatever, or NATO, blah, 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 that's reverberating back into the American political system. It's like, yeah, it's happened before, right?
For a long time.
For a long time. So it's like, it's not unreasonable. And by the way, sunlight is the best disinfectant. And by the way, who were some of the people who were opposed at that time? Dick Cheney, Don Rumsfeld. They were opposed to any kind of Henry Kissinger, any kind of accountability for the intelligence community. And so that's how I look at it. I think there's a real need for accountability, also in the professional military. What is this going on with 4-star officers recently retired who have no political vetting? They haven't been elected dog catcher, weighing in on extremely sensitive points on American calling one of the presidential candidates a fascist. That is wildly inappropriate. There needs to be a fundamental change. First of all, it's wrong. Second of all, it's not consistent with our constitutional order. Remember that our founding fathers, who had gone through the revolution, who had fought a war against a great power and won, they were like, the nasty politics is a feature. Alexander Hamilton and Thomas Jefferson talking about each other's mother, fine. Standing military, We only built a serious standing military. American military officers wore civilian clothes into the Pentagon as late as World War II, maybe even after. So we have come, this is since 1947, or since World War II, basically, and I think we need it given what's happening, but it needs to be accountable. The third point I would make about this group is like...
When he said that standing military officers or officials wore civilian clothes into the White House up until World War II, the first thing that popped in my mind was the House rep, who's an Israeli, who recently wore his, about a year ago, must have been, remember? Who recently wore his IDF military uniform to work in Congress. So now not only do we have military guys wearing the uniform, but now we have sitting U.S. congressmen wearing their foreign military uniforms to work in the American Congress as solidarity with a foreign nation. It's nuts, crazy.
Where do they get off? Like, has our military been successful? Have our political military goals been achieved over the last 25 years? You know,
call me when you win a war.
Yeah,
no, I agree.
If you're Dwight Eisenhower, and by the way, that's most of that guilt goes towards the liberal primacist alliance, the politicians who did it, yes, but also the war leaders who, you know, for instance, H.R. McMaster wrote a book called Dereliction of Duty about how the generals in Vietnam did not tell Lyndon Johnson they couldn't successfully prosecute that war. Okay, I agree with you. How is the senior military done? So I think some humility, getting back to basics, and staying out of politics is really needed.
It's infuriating. It does challenge like the idea of our constitutional order. I agree completely, but it's also ominous. So when you read that the Pentagon now has a new policy where at the direction of civilian leadership, they can kill Americans in the United States, what is that?
I mean, look, there's a lot of things that need to be taken a look at where, like, we have gotten, especially after 9/11, where it's just metastasized, right? Where we need to ask ourselves, what is the right? And I think you've done this, like, commendably, where
you seem to be doing better here than Twitch. You want to know something? My mental health. We're talking about mental health earlier. My mental health is so much better here on Kick than on Twitch. On Twitch, I feel like every single thing I say, I'm walking on eggshells. The only political takes you are allowed to have on Twitch is if you're like pro-Hamas. If I was pro-Hamas, yeah, let's go Hamas, then it would be all good. Then it would be all good. But yeah, my wife raises a good point in the chat. Really, I'm more of a part-time streamer these days. I'm kind of part-time retired from streaming because I don't know if you heard the news. I'm a very famous YouTuber these days. Really, I'm sort of an international sensation. So streaming is more of a part-time gig. I'm a full-time viral YouTube persona, really, these days.
you're saying, look, you know, I was here on this position here, and I'm same thing. Where, like, you know, but look at the costs. And people like, you know, who were, we would say on the old new left would have said, oh my God, this is going to be abused. And people like us were like, don't worry about it. And now they were right. So let's take a new look at that. Again, I think we need to have the capabilities, but I also think this is where this group, I mean, practically speaking, not only former CIA leaders implying that President Trump was a Russian agent is a wild abuse of the trust, because it's a special trust with classified information and special authorities. And it's almost like a religious obligation where there needs to be a self-discipline and an understanding that there's certain things you can't do, you know, and that's been deeply violated. And I think, frankly, Republicans agree that. A lot of Democrats or independents or whatever voted for President Trump. They've delivered a verdict on this issue. So I think you need people who have that balance, which to me is the American way, is to say, look, the people have spoken. This stuff got out of hand, and we need to have a balance, but we need to preserve what we need for our security.
What do you do in Ukraine?
Well, one is I hope the president is successful and leans forward on his plan to end the war. And I just say, I don't know what that is, but nobody knew what Dwight Eisenhower was talking about in 1952. Nobody knew what Richard Nixon was talking about in 1968, and nobody knew what Ronald Reagan was talking about in 1980. You already see indications that players, including President Putin, might be changing, and the Ukrainians for that matter. So I hope there's a basis. What exactly that looks like, I don't think it, you know, you're not going to like liberate Crimea, right? That's obvious, and the war's not going well. I think that's step one. And I think the Europeans need to, I mean, this is something I've been banging on. It's just so common sense. And by the way, you want to talk about who's helping. Biden and Harris, you know, would go to Europe and say, you don't need to worry about anything. But so would kind of primacist type Republicans. they would go to Europe and say, don't worry, we can do everything. We're leading. They didn't do the Europeans any favors. They didn't do the Ukrainians any favors, let alone anybody else, let alone the American people, because they promised things they couldn't deliver. And this is something where, and I said this, Ross Douthat, we had an interview right before the election in the New York Times, where I'd get, isn't it, and Ross didn't say this, but it was sort of like questioning the morality of what President Trump's saying. I don't think there's been a stronger case, a more important time for foreign policy that is more moral than what you see, which is the moralism, which is all intention. You see it on the left from Tony Blinken, just saying, the Ukrainians are fighting for freedom, so we need to do X, Y, Z, and then failing. The way I think about it is like, no, we need a foreign policy that's more like, how does a parent think about the responsibility of the child?
Exactly.
Or
this was, I think this has like kind of slowly changed over the last, it's been 2 years now, just about almost 2 years of this Ukraine situation. For the first 12 months, minimum, probably more than that, if you guys remember back, like the justification for everything, well, Putin is evil, Russia is evil, and so like we are like the comic book good guys and they are the comic book bad guys, and so we have to do everything we can because good wins and evil loses. And it's like, even if you think that Putin is in the wrong, I think he probably is. It's not really that simple. It's like sometimes the bad guy kind of gets away with it a little bit, or like kind of gets what he wants. It's not you don't always have the Harry Potter or Marvel movie ending.
Let's say you're on the board of an orphanage. You might have a really good guy. He goes to church every Sunday. He's like, but never cheats at cards or whatever, but he sucks at handling the money. You're going to hire a guy who's actually going to take care of the orphans.
Exactly.
And that is,
by the way, if all the orphans die, it doesn't matter how much you love them.
Exactly.
Or claim that you do.
You don't actually love them.
Well, of course you don't, because the purpose of a system is its effect. And what's the effect of the war in Ukraine is to depopulate Ukraine, and now to allow foreigners, including many Americans, including BlackRock, to buy the soil of Ukraine.
It's certainly not, whatever this has happened has definitely not been beneficial.
Well, the Ukrainians just lost Ukraine, but not to the Russians, but through the encouragement of the Biden administration. That's my view of it. But how close do you think we have come to a nuclear exchange with Russia during the last 2.5 years?
I think it's close. And Woodward, I'm not sure how reliable he is on everything, but I think the reporting that the Biden administration, which was against interest, was very worried about Russian nuclear employment in later 2022 is very, very concerning. I think it was quite real. And
Really?
the people who were blithe and insouciant about it, I think is incredibly irresponsible and should not be near serious decisions.
Who are those people?
Chat, what's your opinion? Do you guys think that we have been close to nuclear arms trading in the last 2 years with Russia? To be fair, I have not been like as autistically following Ukraine as a lot of other people have. Some people like really in the Discord, Milwin, guys like that. Okay, it doesn't really seem like it though. It doesn't really seem like it's gotten that it's escalated that much.
Well, I think you see this kind of liberal premises. There's a lot of people who signed the no-fly zone or who made comments on Twitter or otherwise around that time and have said, lift all the restrictions on the employment of U.S. forces. And by the way, what's very clear is a lot of these people, if given the opportunity, if they thought the political environment would bear it, would support direct intervention, which if we go to war with the Russians directly, the Russians are very prepared to use nuclear weapons. So we have to be realistic about what that entails.
What does that entail?
Well, I think
Ukraine will negotiate with Trump and Putin and officially give up Crimea and Donbas region of Ukraine, and DMZ will be created too. Ukraine is also so what I've read, maybe we read the same thing and I misunderstood or misinterpreted what I have heard, or what I interpreted. Once again, maybe I'm wrong. I'm gonna get a picture here because I want to draw on it. Okay, so take a little screenshot. All right, this is our region in question here. So what I understood is that let this red line indicate DMZ, a DMZ zone, that there will be a DMZ effectively like enforced like, I'm sorry if my line is not in the exact proper space, but you kind of get the idea that there will be a DMZ enforced and that Russia will keep all of this, and that the DMZ will be staffed with NATO and American troops, and that all of this will be put on ice. There will be a no man's land in between the two. Russia gets all of this. That's what I understood. Maybe I'm wrong. I'd love to see. And that this would also come alongside the promise from Ukraine not to join NATO for 20 years. That's what I heard. So Russia, all of this, Russia gets, and then this is the new border, and then there's a 20-year promise. That's what I heard. So, but it's all, he said, she said, internal sources have leaked, da-da-da-da-da. So who knows? Who knows?
The Russians, one thing about Putin that's important, and again, like, you don't have to like the person to understand that we need to take this guy seriously, right? Is he, as he assumed power and took over from Yeltsin, which in the Russian mind was a catastrophically disastrous period, one of the first things Putin invested in was the recapitalization of the Russian nuclear forces. And the way Putin talks about Russian nuclear weapons and nuclear strategy indicates that he has a quite sophisticated understanding of nuclear strategy. And of course, a lot of it is speculation, because thank God they've only been used once or twice. But it says to me...
Can I say something real fast? This video just hit 100K. This video just hit 600K. And this one from 6 hours ago is at 244K. That's 1 million views in the last 3 days. That's over 1 million views. Over 1 million views in the last 3 days. That's fucking crazy. That's fucking crazy. We are in control. Do you remember when they were trying to cancel us? Do you remember all the Twitter threads? Peo, Zico, chirping, shit talking. Do you remember? What do you think the copium is going to be? What's the copium? Are all of these view bots? Are these view bots? What is the copium now? What's the copium now, bitch? What's the copium now, bitch? Is it all view bots? What's up? Hey, what's up, bitch? You freak. What's up? I win. Do you understand? I win. Me and my boys here in this community, we win. Everybody W. Everybody W in the chat. We win. We do not stop. We win. All we do is win. Insane. I am insane. I am insane. And I will never stop. Let's fucking go. It's crazy. Hold up. Am I retarded though? Hold up. Is my math wrong? I said it's over 1 million views. 600 plus. Oh, fuck. I'm retarded. Oh, shit. Oh, shit. I'm retarded. Oh, no. Whatever. Hey. Whatever.
Hey, this guy's credible.
Whatever.
And he
I'm
has
retard,
an idea of how to use
whatever.
it. You don't start by blowing
Retard
up
W,
Washington,
retard W,
D.C.
retard
You
W.
start potentially with something like battlefield use, selective strikes against things like places in Europe or more peripheral targets, but it can go up there, and then you manipulate risk. And if weapons are used in that way, you can see millions of people. I mean, and we have almost no defense against. That's why I think President Trump, for instance, like having a better shield would be great. But right now, we're pretty much denuded.
I just don't understand. I mean, I guess it's kind of late in the game to whine about it, but we provided, a missile defense shield to another country, but we don't have one. Like, how did that happen?
I don't know. I mean, I think that's something that we can.
Yeah, that's so weird. That's so weird. That is so weird.
Work on. I mean, it's technically very difficult, but I think having something better than what we have now.
But we're always bragging about, the sophisticated use of our defensive missile technology abroad.
Yeah.
Like, did it occur to nobody that the purpose of the U.S. military is to defend the United States?
Well, it is. And by the way, up until the ABM treaty was signed in the late 60s, you would go around American cities and there would be Nike Ajax and Nike Hercules nuclear-tipped missile defense interceptors and other kinds of NORAD and all these kinds of things. So I think having a stronger defense of the American homeland makes sense. And also, people talk about the American military being used, in relation to Mexico, it's like, well, I think Mexico is like and the immigration issue is very, very complicated and everything. But like, the American military is to defend the United States, right? So like that should be.
We should give the ultimatum. Mexico, listen, hey, Mexico, here's the deal. Listen up, amigo. You guys are going to completely shut down the border. You are going to see to it that this immigration crisis is done, that not one single ounce of fentanyl comes across that border. Otherwise, we're invading your country. And we are rooting out every single cartel operation. We will establish a new government. We will use the entire might of the U.S. military. This is a full-on ground invasion. Okay? Secure it. Fix the issue. Fix the fucking issue. That's what we're doing, bitch. That's how we do it.
So to me, the core missions of the American military that really need to be focused on is defense of the homeland, preventing China from becoming the hegemonic power in Asia, because I think we'll never reindustrialize, we'll never be autonomous and be what America needs to be if China dominates Asia.
I know.
But I hope and think we can do that without a war, working with others that pull their own weight, and then having an ability to make sure that we don't have a replication of 9/11. Now, some of that is like being smarter about how we use our own military. But I think some of it is, you got to keep tabs out there. And then I think it's like about supporting, people say Trump is anti-ally. I think that's totally wrong. It's just a different model of allies that's obviously, A, is much closer to the Cold War model, and B, is common sense, is like partnership.
They say Trump is anti-ally. So our, of course, most important ally in Europe is Germany.
Yes, which is Germany. Totally...
and we just...
Germanic Anglo Alliance. Germany, the United Kingdom, and America. This is the triple agreement, tripartite. Listen, this is the pyramid. This is the pyramid. This is what it is. Let's go. Yes.
Destroyed. And so, but by the way, we had a direct hand. This is not speculation. I'm willing to say it's fact in blowing up Nord Stream. So I know we're blaming the Ukrainians, but like we did that. I'm just going to say that. No, that's not true. It is true. So how exactly do we get to launch an act of industrial terrorism against our closest NATO ally? How is that allyship?
Well, the thing that's weird, and this gets, I think, also into the context of like who benefits, cui bono, right?
Yeah.
Is like, so since the Ukraine war broke out, the European economy, and particularly the German economy, has been like in free fall. So there was this kind of cute argument for a while that we had somehow like benefited from Europe sucking air after the Ukraine war.
I've heard many people say that.
And it's like, well, no, wait, hold on. Our point, if you go back to like Dwight Eisenhower and like common sense, is like, no, we want them to stand on our 2 feet. Like, I don't get a rise out of lording it over the Europeans. This is sort of this mindset that
this is still fundamentally a European country. This was a European colony. So Europe is basically allied with the United States on a very fundamental level, or certainly has been for 250 years. So destroy.
Hold up, Tucker. What do you mean? Hold up. Is the implication here that because we have a similar culture, we need to be allied? Or is he saying that because we have a similar ethnic or racial is it a racial thing that we need to be allied? I wonder where is he pulling that from?
Destroying Europe, well, right, with some exceptions, but in general,
you fight with the people closest to you.
Well, that's right, but I mean, like Christian Europe, right? It's basically our ally, and destroying West.
Oh, it's because they're Christian. Well, I mean, Tucker, there are a lot of Christian African countries. In fact, I think at this point, some of the most Christian countries in the world, like per capita, are African. So maybe we need to forsake Europe and alliance ourselves with the Congo or whatever. Maybe we just say fuck Europe. They're not as Christian as the Congo. The Congo is our new greatest ally.
Western Europe, which I think we've done. How does that help us? I don't understand.
Dude, why is the camera?
I mean, the interesting thing about that is, I mean, obviously we're, settled, originally by Europeans. Now we have people coming from all over the world, et cetera. But the thing is, actually, if you look back at our early history, we stayed out of Europe.
Oh, I know.
And we were actually more involved in the Western Hemisphere, particularly the Caribbean and Asia. Actually, so people say, "Oh, we're never going to get focused on Asia." I don't think that's true. The black ships opened Japan.
Exactly.
People were trading in a lot of the early American fortunes. The Peabody Essex Museum in Salem. That was China, right? People trading in Canton, sometimes with opium. and then like Samoa, Hawaii, etc. So I'm not saying like we have a strong interest in Europe.
Philippines.
The Philippines, of course. Thank you. In fact, my great grandfather, we were talking about our families. Like he was an army officer in the interwar period, and he was stationed at the American. There was like a concession in China, not China's proudest period, but we were present. So what I think that means to me is a couple things. One, if you actually go back to American history at our best, and really kind of, the first really until 1989, we did pretty well, with the exception, I think, to things like Vietnam and stuff like that. But it was pretty hard-nosed. Like, you go back to Washington's farewell address, Hamilton, et cetera. It's like, we're looking after number one. So this idea that America first is somehow inconsistent, it's like, by the way, a republic is supposed to be in the interests of everybody, right? Like, that's the definition. So when people say Trump is transactional,
not everybody. Everybody inside the country. Everybody that is here legally inside the country. Not everybody. Americans. Legal Americans.
Whatever. I'm like, good, right? He's like the CEO of America, and the board is saying, hey, look after our interests, right? That's actually what you want. And then on Europe, it's like, we don't actually benefit. I mean, it's been a disaster. I think objectively, the policy over the last 2.5 years in particular has been a total disaster. Germany is in real economic straits. The Ukrainians are losing the war. They haven't built up their military. But, hey, Joe Biden got a medal from Olaf Scholz, who's probably going to be out of a job as well.
I hope so.
In a few months. I hope so. For their sake. I mean, I don't believe in intervening. Apparently, the Europeans, Scholz himself, feel free to intervene in our politics. Scholz endorsed Biden. Do your job. I was at the Republican convention, as you were a couple months ago, and I was getting lectured by a few members of the Bundestag, the German Congress equivalent. Conservatives, putative conservatives. And they were like, why can't you do what Reagan did? And I said, you know what? There's some problems with that, et cetera, like great debt to GDP, our military, et cetera. How about you start out by spending as much on defense as the American people do? Like, why don't that to me is like what President Trump, and against the whole foreign policy establishment. Why? Because the foreign policy establishment likes the dependency model.
Of course. But they like the welfare model in the United States. They want people in public housing.
Right. And that's what I've said to the Europeans. And it's part of my message to the Europeans is like, hey, it's not just your fault. I'm not just castigating you, as responsible you are. It's also our fault, especially our establishment. But if you look at the message from the American people, it's we don't want more of that establishment. And that's, again, why it's so important to have the right policies and vision. Well, we've got the vision. The question now is implementation.
So the problems for the president-elect are the same as they were in the first administration, I would say. How do you staff this thing with people who are aligned with you? Right. And how do you keep the people who presently occupy every position of power, who operate the levers of power, how do you keep them from wrecking the project secretly?
Yeah. And the thing that's different is that the international situation that he's being left with is truly dire. And so there's no room for, kind of like, sort of delay or
there's no look. I'm sorry. I don't want to start attacking people, but I just know everybody, as I know you do.
Well,
they have no. I mean, the people who want these jobs in the Trump, the second Trump administration, and they act like it's 1985. Like
that's the thing.
They have not updated their files. These are the dumbest people I think I've
has
ever
been great
met.
on this.
Yes,
like in the debate when he said to Pence,
why shouldn't he be Secretary of State?
I think
by the way?
Vivek would be an amazing. I mean, he's there. He was out hustling for the president. He's. I mean, we all say what time it is, but he delivered these memorable lines against Pence in that debate, and then he debated John Bolton, I think at VMI, and it was a very human point. I saw the segment where he's just like, you grew up, and it's being generous, honestly, to John Bolton, frankly, but so I admired Vivek on that point, but is said, you grew up in the era of Apollo 11, and I grew up in the era, and he's younger than I am, the global financial crisis, Iraq, failed wars, increasingly fractious society, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it's like, nobody, there's a friend of mine who was interviewed in one of these stories about the new right and so forth. And he said, nobody under the age of 30 I know who's a conservative treats the neoconservative idea with anything but derision and scorn, something like that.
True.
And it was just like, I'm confident where things are heading, but we don't have time because if China, and I'm not a fanatic on China, right? Like my view on China is, and I think the Chinese understand this.
The only group of young Americans that maybe somewhat looks favorably on neoconservatism, it's the neoliberals, really. It's the neoliberals that are actually in closest alignment to the neocons of 20 years ago. Yeah, really.
My view is we need to be strong, but we also need, like in the Cold War, there's a line, and there's we don't cross it, and we need to be able to decouple the thing, reindustrialize the things Lighthizer and Navarro and sort of are talking about, which is bring back industry, have more autonomy, but at the same time, there's a line, but we're not going to go and regime change them. There are people who served in the first Trump administration who are talking about regime change in China, who are talking about primacy over China, like dominating China. Like that is so dangerous. And often they're the same people who are supporting, total support of Ukraine, which makes zero sense, right? So my view is you got to do the things you're talking about, but you've also got to say, we got to, and, Senator Vice President-elect Vance has made these points very well. Reindustrialization is critical, but it's going to take some time. In the meantime, given that the Biden team has used up so much of our weaponry and so forth, we got to husband what we have. And again, to me, that is with the purpose of not getting into wars.
So every year when Apple releases the overpriced new iPhone, veteran-led, go to Pure Talk, very first company.
Chat, what phone do you have? Everybody, type your phone model in the chat right now. Type your phone model in the chat right now. What do you have? iPhone what? No, not Samsung. iPhone. I have an iPhone. I have Samsung. What is your model? What is your phone model? Okay, let me see. iPhone SE, Motorola C1, 16 Pro Max, BlackBerry. I have a BlackBerry. BlackBerry what? A BlackBerry what? iPotato 5, Jitterbug. Do the Jitterbug. Galaxy S23. Nice try, Fed. Everybody, post your phone model and post the password to your phone. Post the password to your phone and post in the chat what hours during the day you are most active. And also the hours when you are least active on your phone. And that'll be a good start. Thank you, guys. Appreciate that. Thank you.
You can be proud to do business with.
I'm proud.
How could 4 stars, how could the leadership of the Pentagon support this?
So it's interesting. I think, again, maybe I'm too optimistic, but I deal with, I dealt with a lot of 4 stars when I was there.
When you worked at the Pentagon?
When I worked at the Pentagon, because the thing about my job, I was like a sort of my formal.
How many 4-star generals do we have? Yeah, hold on. I'm going to Grok. This is the perfect Grok question. Too many? Like when you think of 4-star general, you think of like you're a fucking war hero. You are a war hero. But I think these days it's like maybe that's not the case. How many 4-star right now? Right now. 44. Oh, okay. I guess that's not as many as I was expecting, like hundreds for some reason. Okay, 44. You've got 11 per branch. Actually, I think technically now there are 5 branches. Like officially, Space Force is now, it is a branch. We've got 5. We have Navy, Air Force, Army, Space Force. What am I missing? Hey, yo, what am I missing? Navy? Army? Marines? No, Marines are part of the Navy, right? Marines are not their own branch. Marines are Navy. Coast Guard. Yeah, maybe Coast Guard. Yeah, maybe Coast Guard. Or no, maybe National Guard. National Guard? Maybe National Guard. Right? What? No? Wait, hold up. What did I say? Marines are their own. Is that true? Marines are their own branch? Really? I had always understood that Marines were part of the Navy. Really? Hold up. Am I wrong? Hold up. I trust you guys. I want to know what Grok says. I'm asking Grok. Okay? Are Marines? I'm going to see what Grok says. Are Marines part of the Navy or are they their own branch? Oh. There you have it. Distinct from the Navy. There you okay, well, hey, listen. Hey, Reddit. Today I learned that the Marines are not part of the Navy. They're part of their own branch. Keep reading. Okay. However, administratively, the Marine Corps falls within the Department of the Navy, which is why you might sometimes see Marines referred to as part of the naval service. The Commandant of the Marine Corps reports directly to the to the Secretary of the Navy. But the Marine Corps operates with its own organizational structure, culture, traditions, and mission, separate from the Navy. So it's like kind of, I don't know, kind of is, kind of not. Okay, well, at least my confusion is justified. There you go. Okay, there's my copium. At least my misunderstanding has some reason to it.
The title was a little bit kind of upper middle tier, but basically I was running the strategy. So I had a lot of exposure. I was kind of operating above my the sort of normal level. So I got a lot of experience, and I've stayed in touch with these people. I watch them. Here's the thing, and there's a good Kissinger. I don't think was that great of a statesman, but I think he was a brilliant writer and sort of observer. He said something like, big strategic shifts don't take place just by acts of virtuosity. They reflect underlying trends. And I think you talk to people in the military, and I keep in touch with a lot of them. They know. What I'm saying is like common sense for military people. They know our readiness is down. They know our defense industrial base is in trouble. They know the Chinese are moving like gangbusters. They know the Russians aren't a joke. They know we can't afford to get into another big Middle Eastern war. So if you show at the top level clarity and courage, as President Trump has, in charting the direction, and he has people under him who are genuinely trying to put that into place, I think if you build it, they will come. And here's the other thing. Bear in mind that since 2008, the Democrats have been in control almost the whole time. And before that, it was the Iraq War group. So a lot of the people who've made it to the top of a very flat pyramid, they know how to, like, here's the thing about the military.
How long you think it'll take for me to get a name change in SOD for a tune named Libtarded? You want to know something? I think SOD is probably so dead, and I think that Blizzard gives so few fucks about it. I think you're probably never going to have a name change, bro. You're having that name forever.
And you look at people like John Kelly being out there, moralizing and calling President Trump a fascist, which is like absurd and inappropriate and terrible on its face. Mm-hmm. But it's also like the military, we should respect military service. I certainly do, especially people in combat and so forth. But, the military, there's careerism, there's promotion, people looking after their own interests, etc. The people at the top of the pyramid often are people who have satisfied the criteria for promotion and selection. Yes. That's fine. People respond to incentives, but it is the most ruthless selection process. And bear in mind, to talk about the Republic, the Army, the Navy, and the Marine Corps predate the Constitution. So these are very deeply embedded institutions. People live their entire adult lives in them if they get to be a 4-star. So you just got, again, going to a new left thing, you look at it sociologically, you're like, this is going to have some pathologies. Obviously, it's a really important institution, but you got to But I think at the end of the day,
this is going to have some pathologies. Nicely put.
Nicely put. There are people in there who want to do the right thing, or they can be motivated to do the right thing.
Well, that's it.
Fantastic people in the military, and if they're rewarded for it, they will go. They will get it, because a lot of the guys who would have wanted to do that, they cash out as a colonel or a Navy captain or a 1-star. But if we put the President Trump and his team, I should say, they put the.
All right, chat. First off, okay, give me a 1 if you are a military man, military veteran, or active duty. Any military men, where you at? We love a good military man. Give me a 1 in the chat if you have ever. Okay, we have a couple. Okay, good. Because I have no idea what we have 44 4-star generals in the across all the branches right now. What percent of 4-star generals are retarded? Do you guys have faith in the 4-star generals, or are you like, man, this one is a retard, or this one is a retard, or we don't like that one, or what? 10%. 10% you think are incompetent. 0%. 99%. 50%. 85%. Okay, so crossword. Okay. 99. Mark Milley's Milley is the, yeah. Yeah, okay. So there's at least one that everybody hates. Okay.
Right incentives. I think it'll get better.
I must say, it's just having spent my life in D.C. and just running into them a lot or living near them. It was always so noticeable. I met so many bright, energetic, wise, I would say, colonels.
Yeah.
But far few. I can think of one Marine, 2-star I knew, Marine general, who I thought was so impressive. I'll even say his name, Vinny Colonnese. Wonderful man. But didn't meet a lot of other flag officers that I thought were anything other than politicians.
I think
I'm sure they exist. I mean,
I think real. I'll put it this way: most of the real there's some brilliant defense guys. I'll mention a Democrat I have a lot of respect for, Bob Work, who served in the Pentagon. He's a great guy. He was a Marine colonel, retired. Andrew Krepenevich, who is another brilliant guy, an Army guy, retired colonel. Often the guys who are really the highest horsepower, real strategic thinkers.
In order to put stars on, you have to be a colonel getting coffee for generals in D.C. You don't get to be a general without being a swamp monster. You don't serve, you're a bureaucrat. Oh. Well, first off, we'll come back to that. Droobies, thank you very much for the 10. Thank you very much. I appreciate that a lot. Thank you very, very much. Thank you for the 10. And by the way, hey, that puts us over 17. Over 1,700. Thank you very much. So there are two. I imagine like the first step is got to be an officer, colonel, and then you go and then general, right? Maybe there's like different micro tiers involved, right? Okay, and there's two ways to become an officer. Yeah, there's you do your 4 years there's enlisted officers, where you work your way up after having been enlisted. And then there's, you sign on as an officer after going through ROTC, or you have a degree and then you apply, I think, maybe. Okay. So what I've heard, you guys let me know yes or no, is that in the military, non-enlisted officers don't get as much respect. They're seen as like they didn't go through the struggle that everybody else did. Is that true? That kind of is what it is? Okay. Sorta. Not true. Not true. True. Not true. Okay. Depends here. Yeah, okay. I'm sure there's people that feel both ways. Yeah, sure. Okay. I really have no idea, so I'm just kind of like talking through it. Okay.
They cash out at that level because that's what the selection is for. It's not to say that the other people aren't smart, but like the people that, and there's
it's so noticeable.
And there's a mismatch between how people think like, oh, he has 4 stars, ergo he's like a strategic genius. No, that's not how the selection process works. You know what I mean? Like they're promoted for like running a corps, an army corps, or a fleet. That's different than that's fine, but let's understand what we're dealing with.
But shouldn't the process, isn't the point of promotion to winnow out the less capable and elevate?
Well, it depends on what you're selecting for.
Yeah, well, I guess that's it.
But I think, hey, how about selecting for winning?
Yeah, hey,
like I
how
think
about that?
as opposed to like kind of.
It's kind of hard to select for winning. If you're looking for 4-star generals, if you're not like actively engaged with anything, like if there's no war or conflict, then how do you know who's better at winning, right? I guess all you can do is like kind of base it off of testing or practice shit, right? But there has to be an opportunity to win in order to have a winner.
Like playing the game and saying the right things, and we don't know. That's the other thing about I love the meme of Mark Milley and Eisenhower and their chests. Like it's so perfect.
Incredible.
It's just you could speak for 10 hours and
when I watched Milley in that famous hearing talking about white rage, I thought this is a guy who doesn't have any idea what he's talking about. He's saying words he thinks he's supposed to say. Doesn't seem terribly bright. He seems weak above all. He seems like the product of a bureaucracy to me, which probably shouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, and I think and again, to this pathology point, like if you read McMaster's memoirs, for instance, he's almost kind of lecturing the American people about their need to like double defense spending and stay in Afghanistan until the second coming. And it's like, it's that touch grass kind of thing where like you don't have political accountability, like direct. I mean, for instance, they're not elected, but people who are civilian appointees go through political vetting. So they have a kind of indirect political accountability, where the elect, you have to demonstrate loyalty and, you're on the team, et cetera. You have to be aware of that. The military, they really don't have that ostensibly, although I wonder about the left in kind of through the back door importing some of those things. But so you get to this point where you think that you're like, well, I'm speaking in front of a large group of people because I'm a 4-star general. And it's like, actually, you really have no standing to talk about that issue at all, because that's a domestic issue that you like.
This guy really does have Tucker Carlson's speech mannerisms. He totally does, dude.
Like, don't have any political finger feel for,
like
and
on
you're supposed
point,
to be
he does.
much more careful and modest about that
But
anyway.
they have no moral authority, right, to speak about anything like that because they have no authority apart from that granted them by the
Yeah,
president.
exactly.
Because we have civilian control, and the president's authority comes from voters.
Right. And by the way, and if somebody has authority, and it's like the Audie Murphy guy, the guys that you talking to who are like out there in the field,
exactly.
Fallujah or whatever, they have authority, But I'm always like, another guy, Frank McKenzie, who's out there a lot, who's constantly hammering, these points. And I was like, well, he was the CENTCOM commander when the Afghanistan withdrawal happened. And he didn't put his stars on the, if he thought there was a better way, why didn't he put his stars on the table? So, like, why are, okay. I mean, I personally supported the Afghanistan withdrawal. I believe President Trump still does, but it said that it's done terribly, and which I think is clear. But it's like, you could say Dwight Eisenhower had a kind of moral authority. But the other thing about Dwight Eisenhower, I mean, he was actually a smart guy. But if you look at like his Guildhall speech, I don't know if you remember this, but like he, unlike MacArthur, for instance, he had a real feel for the American people, a civilian army. Like they were offering the award of the City of London. He said, "I can't accept this. I accept this only on behalf of the great human forces." He said, which is like, yeah, it's like regular guys. And to me, I try to have that mindset about like, I don't want people to get torn limb from limb in a war with China that we could avoid, let alone another, like, or vaporized in a nuclear explosion with Russia. Of course, that means you don't just like do whatever they want, but you've got to like calibrate that balance, always thinking about, as President Trump has said, going back to like, what's in the concrete interest of the American people?
You've referred repeatedly to a potential war with China. I assume that would be over Taiwan.
I think, yes, Taiwan would be the focal point, but what I think is very scary about the Chinese, and I don't think the Chinese are behaving frankly, if you apply the way, like you were in Washington from the period after the collapse of the Soviet Union, right? Or a little bit after, right? But like.
No, I was there that day.
You were there, okay. Oh, right, exactly. I know you've talked about this. If you apply the same kind of behavior that we exhibited over the 20 years after that, and you apply that model to a China that is not constrained, that's very scary, right? Like, so we just have to apply the same model to them, because again, to me, as like a conservative, and I don't think
I know exactly what you're saying, but maybe that's too subtle. Yeah, we explain precisely what you're saying.
We went from being in the 1980s, you had the Weinberger Doctrine of President Reagan, and Reagan almost getting impeached because he was trying to help just a proxy group with the Contras because people were so afraid of getting in another Vietnam. And the biggest thing that he would do would have meetings with the Soviet premier on nuclear weapons because people were like, this could happen, and I really don't want it to happen, right? Fast forward 15 years, and we're invading Iraq, and as you recall, the people who were biggest fans of invading Iraq, the plan was also to go after probably Syria and Iran and so forth, informally or not.
I worked for those people at the time.
So I mean, that was just the starting point.
Oh, I'm aware. Right? Yeah.
So and
that was the new American century.
The way I interpret that is you're going to have people like that because we're human beings, and that's how we socialize or whatever. And if there's no constraint, you would have been like sent to the loony bin in 1982 if you're like, oh, let's invade Iraq. 2003, if you said we shouldn't invade Iraq, you were like, even if you were Brent Scowcroft, you were castigated.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So.
And never rehabilitated, by the way.
Interesting.
You know who was the first, like, really big name person to publicly get away with saying that going into Iraq was a mistake? And Afghanistan. You know who is responsible for snapping America out of that mind control that, like, that's just something that was good and that we had to do? You know who it was? It was 2016 at the first Republican primary debate. It was Donald Trump up on the stage. Donald Trump goes up on stage, and he's standing next to Jeb Bush, who's the brother of George Bush, who pulled the trigger on that, right? And he says at the first RNC debate, amongst all the other clone Republicans, right, neocon type of Republicans, he says, we shouldn't have done that. That was stupid. That was fucking stupid. And there was this moment where it's like, can he say that? Did he just say that on the Republican primary debate stage? And it was like, Just it took the breath out of the room. In fact, can I Trump 2016 debate Iraq invasion? Where was this? Yeah, maybe it was this. Might have been this.
We turn now to Saturday night's Republican debate in Greenville, South Carolina. It was the ninth.
Obviously, the war in Iraq was a big, fat mistake, all right? Now, you can take it any way you want, and it took Jeb Bush, if you remember at the beginning of his announcement, when he announced for president, took him 5 days. He went back. It was a mistake. It wasn't a mistake. Took him 5 days before his people told him what to say, and he ultimately said it was a mistake. The war in Iraq, we spent $2 trillion, thousands of lives. We don't even have it. Iran is taking over Iraq with the second largest oil reserves in the world. Obviously, it was a mistake. So George Bush made a mistake. We can make mistakes, but that one was a beauty. We should have never been in Iraq. We have destabilized the Middle East.
I'm sick and tired of Barack Obama blaming my brother for all of the problems that he's had. And frankly,
This is early. This is early. And so the crowd goes wild. Listen, this is before Donald Trump had brute force fucked the entire Republican Party into submission. Okay, and he did. Over the next couple months following this debate, he did. He showed him what's up. Okay, but this is early on in the process. Like at this point, the Republican Party was something else entirely.
I could care less about the insults that Donald Trump gives to me. It's blood sport for him. He enjoys it, and I'm glad he's happy about it. But I am
$22 million in
All right, whatever. Okay, back to our Tucker video.
Interesting. Well, I don't agree with them on everything, but I mean, that sort of mindset.
I agree, but I'm just saying.
No, exactly. Yeah.
It wasn't like, Brent Scowcroft got rich or more respect. I mean, he said those things, to his own detriment.
Yeah, and I just on the China thing, what I would say is they care a lot about Taiwan, but I think it's very clear they're building a military to go beyond Taiwan. They're building a basing architecture to go well beyond Taiwan. I think that's, in a sense, almost indisputable. And I think they have interests to go beyond Taiwan. This is what worries me, is I actually fear, ironically, that China is living out the Leninist theory of imperialism, which is they need captive export markets for their overproduction. And of course, they need natural resources and other things to import. And so they have a rational incentive to what the Japanese created, the Greater East Asia Co-Prosperity Sphere. Every empire, formal or informal, is not everyone, but like a lot of them start out as basically commercial zones.
Of course.
And that's what I worry about. And again, the good news is I think we can negotiate with China about that. That's why I think President Trump's, against a lot of criticism, his willingness to be open to negotiating a deal with President Xi is good. Because we don't have an implacable hostility or rivalry. We don't have to change. I hate communism, but like that's up to them. And the last thing I want is Americans dying trying to impose our form of government on them. Hopefully, that's pretty uncontroversial. But I think if we just Taiwan's a tough issue because the point I've been making, and I've gotten some flack from, again, good quarters from the Wall Street Journal last couple of months, is like, I've been saying we should focus on defending Taiwan and they need to step up. They haven't done it and we haven't prioritized. So I think Taiwan is on the knife's edge right now. Now, I think we want to avoid a war over that if we possibly can. And President Trump has said an attack on Taiwan isn't going to happen under my watch. So I think it is absolutely incumbent upon whoever is working for him to make sure that doesn't happen.
You know what? It seems pretty likely that if Kamala Harris had been elected, if Kamala Harris had been elected, Taiwan is getting invaded, right? I think like if you had to bet money, it's like probably they're going to do that under Kamala. With Trump, probably not. Maybe they wait 4 more years. Maybe they're chilling.
Combining a strong shield with a rational defensive policy and kind of political message to China that convinces them that, look, you're better off with peace.
Well, the Wall Street Journal attacked you?
Yeah, so they...
How long will the Wall Street Journal kind of be considered the preeminent place where, quote, conservative intellectuals explain their views.
I think they're actually in trouble. Honestly, I read them, but they are so far out of whack. I mean, so on the kind of national security, foreign policy issues, they are total premises. That they in the same breath, often they'll say our military is in terrible shape, but we need to have aggressive policies in like 4 different theaters. It makes no sense. It's incoherent, right? They're way out of step on the conservative Republican views on like trade, where like Lighthizer and Navarro and the president are. They can't stand people. They've been repeatedly criticized people like you, like Vice President Vance. So I feel like I'm honored to be in this company. So it's sort of like, obviously they reflect a certain part of the, American population, which is sort of, wealthier professionals who are probably more socially liberal, the Acela corridor, New York, et cetera. But I think a lot of people read them because they matter, right? But at some point you get so far out of whack that you actually become a liability. And they were big backers of Nikki Haley and so forth. So, I think we need, but then with the rise of new media, I mean, you've been a pioneer in this, but others, and Elon and what he's done with X and, and David Sachs and these kind of people, I think there's hope that like, not only is it not going to matter as much, but it may become less and less relevant.
It seems like the Drudge Report to me, you have in your mind that this, Drudge went from, well, Drudge was of course sold to left-wingers.
1 million views in 3 days. It's true.
That's true.
It's true.
But the Wall Street Journal in some sense has been also, I don't know. People who imagine the Wall Street Journal is conservative are sort of like haven't been paying attention.
It's like the socially liberal fiscal conservative.
Yeah,
and they were like mocking President Trump in the interview. I thought that was pretty lame and kind of gross.
It's a really dishonest newspaper, and I'm rooting for its demise. I just want to say that. I mean that.
I hope it could get reformed, but
you're right. You're totally right. We've seen enough institutions destroyed. I do think it's really a garbage newspaper, and I wish more people realize that.
Why does he do this, dude? Why does he? Do you think, is it natural? Is it natural? Or is he faking this? Why does he do this? Why did he do it?
I can't control myself. Sorry. Out of control.
He can't control himself. He's unhinged. He's out of control.
So when do you think it'll be clear, like, who's administering Trump's foreign policy?
I mean, I honestly don't know. I mean, it's obviously up to him. But what I would say is, I hope he picks people who will implement the vision that he ran on, and that you and others have supported him so ably about. I just as sincerely as an American. I mean, even if I'm not part of it or I'm dog catcher or whatever, I mean that. I think if the primacist types who could get us into multiple wars get in there, you're going to have to get to a more realistic foreign policy eventually.
Well, they'll destroy Trump.
They could destroy his administration.
People like Pompeo, whom I know personally, hate Trump. They hate Trump. And, I don't care what he says, or Lindsey Graham says, oh, he's so great. They suck up to him on Fox News, but they hate him. And they're working to undermine him. And they did throughout his 4 years in office, and the 4 years that followed. They undermined him because they hate him. So I just hope that there is a new generation in the Republican Party of people who maybe aren't even ideological, but just put
common sense. Yeah.
America's interest is the whole point of our government.
I think there is a new generation, people in their 20s and 30s. I'm very hopeful. I mean, I talk to a lot of them. What I'm worried about is I don't think there's any. I mean, you maybe and Trump is like an exception. But, you look at a guy like Vice President Vance, he's only, I think, 40.
Yes.
A lot of the best senators, are much younger.
Yes.
When you look at Eric Schmidt.
Eric Schmidt is amazing.
Jim Banks,
Exactly.
younger guys. Like, and the problem is people just naturally like, well, we need somebody who's 65 or whatever. And it's sort of like, but I think it's even worse than what you're suggesting, because like, let's say we get in a big Middle Eastern war, and you have people who are talking about an independent Taiwan or regime change in China or regime change in Russia, and we get bogged down. Why wouldn't the Chinese attack? Like, apply how we behave, the Project for a New American Century style thinking, and just think that those people will be in the ascendancy in Beijing. The way I think about it, Tucker, is like, we're like a heavyweight boxer, and China's another heavyweight boxer. Russia's like a middleweight, and maybe North Korea and Iran are like, welterweights or featherweights or whatever. Those guys can tear you out, and China can call us to a match at any time. And
Okay, you don't want to be overconfident. Is China in our weight class? Is China really in our weight class? I don't know. I don't know, dude. I don't think so, dude. You think so? I don't think so, dude. I don't think so. But also, it's like, this is something to keep in mind. And, you know, I always try to think about this. So much of what we know over here, like we are exposed to our own like pro-America or pro-Western bias and pro-America, pro-Western strength and superiority, almost like propaganda. So it's like it is hard to know really in an unbiased way, how good are they, how powerful are they, how I don't know, man. It seems like we're like pretty far ahead, but I don't know. It also does seem like warfare is changing a lot right now. Like right now, where it's kind of the dawn of the drone meta, right? And so we have a situation where we're going to wage a conventional war. It's World War III conventional war, China and China. They've got stockpiled. They've got 1 billion suicide drones. They've got 1 billion suicide drones, and each of them cost $17. And like we just can't, we're just overwhelmed, and then we're fucked. It's like game over, right? Like who knows? Who knows? I don't know.
And if we're not ready, that is like terrible, And so at that point, we would have to put a more realistic foreign policy. But my view, and this is, I think, a real point to the kind of people who read the Wall Street Journal op-ed page, the point that I would make to them is, if we go down this path of aggressive policies in 3 or 4 different theaters of the world without the backing, we will end up bloodied and bruised. We will have catastrophic defeat. Lots of Americans will be killed. And the American people may very well say, I'm done. This is, all the rules-based international order. This is what it led to. Forget about it. And that, if you want to save it, if you want to save something, like I think mine is like the reform rather than the radical upheaval. Mine is like, hey, no, I believe in the post-war. I just don't believe in the post-1989 absurd hubris going around. The people, the Cold War, and I keep going back to it, but just like, I just try, because like, Senator McConnell will talk about Eisenhower all the time, and I'm like, dude, Eisenhower thought that if there were U.S. troops in Europe at the end of the 1950s, it was a failure. He's the one who came up with the Uncle Sucker line, not President Trump. So you want to talk about the Cold War legacy? We were pretty ruthless. The Germans attacked us, or excuse me, sound like John Belushi. The Japanese.
Dude, these things, I don't know if you guys are worried enough about drones. Maybe I'm worried too much. Drones scare the living fuck out of me, man. I have seen on 4chan, I've seen so much Ukraine war footage where a guy's running around a field and a drone, $15 drone blows him up, dude. I am so fucking worried about drones, bro. Like it is so easy. God forbid I'm not, It is so easy to do bad things with a drone. It is so fucking for anyone. My neighbor could do it. I could do it. You could do it. It's so easy to do bad things with a fucking drone. It's not, dude. I'm losing sleep. I'm losing sleep over drones, man, these days. I'm having nightmares about drones. I'm freaking out. Dude, look at the windshield. Okay, imagine your body is that windshield. Yep, it's over. GG. Yeah, fuck that. Fuck that. This meta sucks. This war meta sucks. We gotta bring back swords. We gotta go back to swords. Even bows. Bows are cheating. Bows are not allowed. Crossbows, certainly not allowed. Shields and swords. That's where we're going. We're going back. Yeah. And then so that video we just watched. Imagine every single one of these is one of those. Every single one of these 300 drones is one of those that we just saw. That's having shrapnel detonations, right? You're fucked. It's over. And also, like, okay, let's be fair. Every single one of these drones is worth like $50. So it's not exactly, you know, insanely expensive if you're a government. It's not insanely spendy to do that, to set some up like that either. Oops, wrong video. My bad.
He's attacked us in 1941, and we let the Soviets do the bulk of the fighting.
Exactly.
And we put Germany first. Why? And I'm glad, as a descendant of people who were in the European theater of operations, I'm glad that the Soviets. But George Shultz, when he went and dealt with his counterpart, he wrote about this very movingly. He went to the cemetery in Leningrad, and he offered a somber salute. And I had the honor to meet Shultz a couple times. And this was not he had strong views and so forth. But I think you can respect that, you know, and understand that we can be hard-nosed and look at your opponents and say, we don't want a war.
We've told you before about Hallow. It is
Whoa. Dude, or, you know, this is a war crime, so you can't do this. Chemical weapons delivered by drones. Drone chemical weapon bombs. Dude, it's like, dude, World War III is going to be so bad. World War III is going to be fucked. It's going to be so terrible. Remember, everyone's like, dude, World War I trench warfare is super bad. Bro, World War I is going to look like a vacation compared to World War III. World War III, like, I'm not even worried about the nukes. The nukes, it's like instant death, just vaporize me at an atomic level. I'm never even going to know about it. Just, I'm vaporized. Okay, dude, nukes are the least of your worries in World War III. It's bad, bro.
a great app that
It's all
so try Hallow. Get 3 personally and strongly and totally sincerely recommended. Hallow.com/Tucker.
Hallow.com.
what happened to all the Bush people. You were here for that.
Yeah.
Not just the President Bush and his family, are pretty clear were for Kamala Harris, but all the people who staffed that administration. Do all of them still buy those ideas, those 20-year-old ideas, or have any come around to your position?
It's a great question, because I know a lot of them. It's like you. I like a lot of them, you know, and
sure.
some of them know. I admire some. I don't admire others. And people are going, you know, a lot of them put flags in the ground with the foolish and inappropriate Never Trump letters in 2016, and they're kind of, so their hands are a bit tied.
Yeah.
So I don't know how they would behave in a vacuum. I think you see sort of various stages of grief.
You know who I remember very clearly was a Never Trumper, and now he's one of Trump's biggest dick riders of all time? Is that fat retard Glenn Beck. Remember Glenn Beck, that fat retard? And by the way, he actually is very successful these days. He has the Blaze Network. It really is very successful. But Glenn Beck was a die-hard, like 11 out of 10 Never Trumper. Every day, because there was I used to have a job when Trump was running his campaign early on. I had a job where I was washing buses. I was a bus washer in the evenings, and so I would listen to the Blaze podcast as I was washing city buses, and so I would listen to the Blaze every day for like 4 or 5 months straight. That guy was diehard. You could not be more Never Trump. And also at the same point, early 2016. Ben Shapiro was a die-hard Never Trumper, big time.
I mean, various people kind of adapting in different ways, or not adapting. Some people are kind of like unreconstructed. Some are kind of like resigned.
Pull up the video where he dunked his face in Cheeto dust. That's not even the best Glenn Beck video. The best Glenn Beck video. I'm about to type a word that I disavow. I disavow this word. I'm going to type it off screen. Where is it? Where is it? Dude, did they purge the video? Where's the video? This might be it. Where is it? The Majority Report. Is it? Where is it? What the fuck is that? Dude, where does he say it? It was because it was funny. Oh, here it is. Dude, this is hilarious. You ready?
Call Goldline. They're waiting for your call now at 866 Goldline. 866 Goldline. My N-word. That didn't really. Back a minute.
Oh shit, dude. In my brain, he said it. Oh, I thought he said it, but he actually said N-word. And now I look bad because I typed it. Oh, fuck. Oh, shit. Okay, I gotta go. Okay, it's over. Where's our video? Anyway, moving on.
To where things are going. You know what's funny about the Bush? I mean, you remember this better than I do, but I remember, like, Bush ran on a more humble foreign policy.
I know.
You know, I mean, actually, what Trump's saying is not that radically different from the kind of Bush vibe, which was against the crusading progressivism of Bill Clinton. Now, he ended up totally abandoning that, unfortunately, to his eternal discredit. And in a sense, he was a progressive. He was armed progressivism. Bill Kristol is let's fight the end of history, you know, basically, which is like, that's not in any way. And I mean, conservative, I'm not like Angela dancing on the head of a pin. It's just not common sense, right? But I think a lot of those people, it's going to be hard to incorporate them. You know, there's sort of and a lot, you know, sociologically, again, they're invested in the old model. And so I think we're going to need, the trouble is that all the credentialing's been on that side. And so
all of it,
almost all of it. I mean, I'm not to make anything myself, but like I'm a rare, and I was teetering on the maybe passing over to the edge of respectability or whatever the mainstream is, you know, for years. And, you know, I think what I find though encouraging, Tucker, is and this is where, I mean,
wait, can I say you went to Groton and Harvard, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Well,
so are you the only person in the world who went to Groton and Harvard who voted for Donald?
Yeah, you think that's impressive? I went to Portland State University and then dropped out to play World of Warcraft for 7 years. And now I'm here. So what's up with that? You think you're impressive?
You know, I don't think so. Actually, my Groton and Harvard roommate was indicating. I think there are a few others. I mean, okay, so you got me. You know, people say this sometimes, and I think they say it about you too. It's like, oh, you're from the elite background. How can you not support the elite? And I'm always like, the elite is supposed to work for the public interest. And by the way, that was the model. Teddy Roosevelt was behind the founding of Groton School, which I went there. I have very fond memories. A lot of people who are associated with that hate Donald Trump and everything. I proudly support him. But I think the whole point is to serve, you know, his service is perfect freedom. The idea is public service, is putting the interests of the public ahead. And so to be honest, I find the current establishment, I look at Morning Joe or something, and I'm like, this is not what America deserves.
Okay, so I have the same perspective, and I would say more broad, the identical perspective, and I would say that nobody reforms the system who doesn't understand the system.
Yeah,
and
you're always going to have it.
Teddy Roosevelt saved capitalism in the United States by restraining,
and he was hated by his peers
by restraining the monopolies.
Exactly.
And the only reason he was able to do that was because he was pushing back against his own class. Exactly. He understood them. Right. So no, I'm not attacking you for going to Groton and Harvard. I'm rather saying I think it's essential that you understand. J.D. Vance hated Trump. Went to Yale Law School, started going up to the Aspen Institute to speak in the summer, found the people there so repulsive.
He's like, oh, he was totally
that he has become their nightmare.
Exactly.
Because he knows who they are.
Right.
He had dinner with David Brooks many times.
Exactly.
Anyway.
Totally. And I think I think that's, you know,
I'm still not so certain about the whole J.D. Vance thing. I'm not so certain that he really is, you know, an outsider. He used to be an insider, and now he's an outsider. Yeah, I don't know.
Love this clip of Maggie Goodlander getting called out by this.
I know.
You know, it should be challenged. If you're like, anybody should be subject to challenge, and that's what's so great about like X and podcasts.
Did Maggie Goodlander win? I'm embarrassed.
I think so. I'm not sure, and I'm like not picking on her particularly, but like, you know, there's a fair point. But I mean, my view is, and it's apropos because the other woman I think was I think her family's from China. But, you know, even under Mao, I mean, the ultimate...
Wait, who's from China? Who the fuck is from China?
because the other woman I think was in, I think her family's from China. But, even under Mao, I mean, the ultimate egalitarian system, there is an establishment. There is an elite.
Well, of course.
And of course, Xi Jinping is a product of that elite.
Dogs create hierarchies. You're always going to have a hierarchy.
Right.
So the question is not, do you have a ruling class? You're getting a ruling class.
Is it good?
Do you have a good ruling class?
Exactly.
Or do you have Jake Sullivan and...
This Kick Chat has a hierarchy, and at the top of it is Charles Danger. And he's at the top, and then everybody else is below him. And that's just the way that it is.
Tony Blinken, that's the best we got.
And here's the other thing, and I don't want to cry too much of a river here, but like they are the establishment, and they act in like a sociologically conservative way. They're all going to leave office, and they're all going to get great jobs on Wall Street, and they're all going to go to law firms and whatever. And it's the people who are taking on the establishment and are taking the slings and arrows, and hopefully metaphorically alone. But to me, that's the point. That's what you're supposed to do. If as the Bible says, to whom much is given, of whom much is expected.
I strongly agree with that.
And I think you're a model of that, honestly. And I'm not just saying that.
Well, no, I really believe in that, and I'm just so offended by the mediocrity and selfishness and stupidity of our ruling class that I just can't. And I don't care if they kill me. I will never stop feeling that way.
And that's you're incredibly courageous. So,
Bridge Colby, I am rooting for you fervently. I just wanted to make sure everyone knows who you are and what you think. This process is taking place privately, as it.
Just two intelligent white men talking. Just two intelligent, reasonably handsome white guys sitting in a rustic cabin setting, just talking. What the fuck is he drinking? This has got to be like some type of tea. This is like green tea, like super concentrate green tea or something. What the fuck is this?
It has to, but I also think that people who voted for Trump because they want a calmer world, they don't want the United States or him to be destroyed in wars, I think they should know what's going on. So I hope this provides a little sunlight.
Thank you very much, my friend.
Bless you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's go. W. I think that was a pretty good talk.